couple of days ago in Southern California at world-famous Venice Beach. Nice day at the beach, thousands of people out, a lot of people in the water, people on the sand, playing games, sunning, the usual. And all of a sudden, clouds moved in from across the channel between Catalina Island and Venice Beach. Dark clouds, the thunder shower, which just doesn't happen along the ocean in the summer. You just don't hear about it. The ocean is a relatively constant temperature. Thunder showers are usually caused by heat rising off the land, pushing moisture up in the air. It doesn't usually happen over the water, at least not in Southern California. The ocean is, 68, 70 degrees, not hot enough to push enormous amounts of moisture up in the air to cause a thunder shower. Well, this thunder shower also had lightning, which is doubly bizarre. It struck Catalina Island, injured a man, a golfer, I guess, started a brush fire there, and then moved toward the shore. The people at Venice Beach got no warning. There was no official warning put out. And here comes this thunderstorm, or whatever it was. More lightning. A lightning bolt hit the ground there, or the water. I'm not sure which, but they think people in the water swimming may have died. They're still looking for bodies. One person was killed, a number of people injured. It was a very bizarre thing. Well, nature's strange and unpredictable, and oh well, no big deal, right? Wrong. This is a very big deal. Now, before we get into this, I'm going to do one little thing here. First, let me say hello to my friend and colleague, Yoichi Shimatsu, who has been with us for 3.5 years now. Hi, Yoichi. How are you?
Well, a little shook up by this, what I call the first shot of the real radiation disaster from Fukushima reaching California, at least.
That's exactly what it is.
Pacific Northwest, but this is like the opening shot of the real disasters.
Yeah. Let me do this one little thing, and then we're going to go into this in detail, because it's very important. And I've got the story up at the very top center column at Rense, and I hope you'll all read it. You're not going to hear this from the government. You're going to hear it from us. Associated Press did report that marine birds are disappearing in the Pacific Northwest. Well, I can tell you birds everywhere are disappearing in the Pacific Northwest, and probably all up and down the West Coast. Significant ecological shift, said AP. Significant ecological shift. Crashes in many species. Die-offs. Something's happening on a big level, but what is it? Is the question posed. The herring problem, if you remember, the vast schools of herring were found 2 years ago now, and last year even the same, but worse. Bleeding from eyes, gills, every orifice. Herring is a food fish. It says the herring problem may be far worse than revealed. Result of contamination? None of these scientists dare use the R word. They will not say radiation. They won't even say it might be radiation. They are so afraid of their own shadows, it's sickening. There's nothing else that can be causing the enormity of the crisis in the North Pacific except 3 years plus of deadly, massive injections of waterborne and airborne radioactivity from Fukushima. And I'll leave it to you to read the rest of the story at Rense. Now, back to Southern California, and this is what Yoichi calls the opening shot of Fukushima radiation along the West Coast. And I think, as usual, and he was the first to nail the bomb which blew MH17 out of the sky over the proper location. MH17 shouldn't have been flying where it was. The Polish air traffic controllers rerouted it to fly over the place where it was blown up. Can you spell conspiracy? You don't even have to. You can just say it. Anyway, Yoichi was the first to put the bomb hypothesis, which makes absolute sense out there, and it went off the same day that the Zionists invaded and began to run their final genocide on the Palestinians. Perfect diversion. Same people behind both events. And anyway, here we are. All right, my friend. Why the first shot? I understand, but let's tell our listeners.
When I say that is because this is the really great radiation pulse in the water, but that's been anticipated, and it's been here. As I told you a couple of weeks ago, you can see a line of dark clouds, a straight line, behind Catalina Island. This is where the California current, which brings the radiation from the North Pacific current, from Fukushima, down the west coast, and it curves around Catalina Island because there's a Channel Island and there's a shelf out there, so it curves around, okay? Yeah. And you can see a line of cloud that is perfectly flat, always there, never going away.
Really?
Dark gray. Yeah.
Now,
it's identical to Fukushima. Identical.
I lived in Santa Barbara in Isla Vista, right on the cliff for 9 years, and I'm well acquainted with looking out past Santa Cruz Island and Acapa Island, clear as a bell.
Yeah, this is a permanent cloud line, exactly like Fukushima, and eerily flat. It's straight across like someone's using a smudge, like a charcoal, stick of charcoal, artist charcoal, and drawing it across the hands. But it's like that. This is exactly what you see outside of Fukushima all the time now, in the Japan Trench. We're seeing this in the equivalent of that. This is for the California current coming down, and it tends to slow down around the Channel Islands because it's turning, okay? It goes through several channels, and it's always there. San Clemente Island, which is a military-controlled island used for bombing runs, that's obscured most of the time now. Sometimes you can see it, other times this straight line cloud just flows right across it and over it. This is exactly the area where the clouds that came up to Venice Beach northward went northward and unloosed the lightning. So I think it's unmistakable. This is a very much characteristic of a radioactive cloud that moves. Basically, what you have is you have a normal cloud. You have a cloud there, basically water, which has been heated by radionucleotides, forming this cloud. So it's very even. And surrounding it, what you can't see, is sort of a mantle of radioactive isotopes all around that. And what we can see happen in Venice Beach, we're talking about at least 3 strikes, major strikes in Catalina Island, 4 of them at least in Venice Beach, a house and a car, so 2 strikes in Redondo Beach, okay? So a number of strikes occurred in series that basically the protons from Fukushima are being sucked in with the cloud as hot air rises in the deserts of California and pulls it in. So between the 2 Channel Islands, you have, what you talk about up there off of Santa Barbara. There's a set of islands there, the Channel Island National Park. Then you have the Catalina group south of that.
Yeah.
And so basically this cloud was sucked in toward the Los Angeles area and went straight up there and unloosed. And when these protons, what happens is when the hot air rises over the desert, it sucks up air from the ocean, and the air that travels across the waves and across the shore and the ground basically strips away electrons from the water in the ground. And so you have this huge amount of free electrons, which are a negative charge. The protons are a positive charge. When that cloud came in from Catalina Island, boom, wham. And, the chances of being struck by lightning in California are 1 in 75 million. It's one of the lowest lightning places in the United States. Okay, 1 in 75 million. We saw what? We saw about 9 strikes yesterday.
Now, this is not what we would see in the summertime as inland.
It never happened before.
Right.
It's so rare. There's nothing on record of this nature.
Yeah.
That's how rare it is. If it ever happened, no one bothered to record it. This is not a freak of nature. This is man-made. Okay. The other thing that I know, why I confirm that it's not man-made, last night, just 12 hours after this event at Venice Beach, it rained heavily on the California coast. In fact, it was the heaviest rainstorm ever in the month of July. It rained more in one night, in an hour, than it has in 10 July. 10 July, we're talking about more than 300 days. It rained more in a less than a 1 hour period along the coast. That very unusual rain. So the first thing I did, jumped on a bicycle. Here I am, once again, the guy with a bicycle, not with a car, not with a limo, not with a pickup truck, but with a bicycle.
Back in Fukushima. God bless
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Fukushima, California. Here I am. I came here to take a break from it, to rehabilitate, to get my breath and what happens. And I was really depressed after hearing the news of Venice because I knew, and it's here. It's followed me. I came here for a break, and now I got to face it. And I'm going to have to ride a bicycle, which I did this morning. I went down to a coastal marine park.
You took your Geiger counter with you.
Yeah, it was my dosimeter. Took it down there, and lo and behold, I checked a couple houses, the roofs. There was on the edge of the roof something that let's say it was 12 microsieverts on the ground below the roof, but on the roof itself 20. So we're talking about more than half a jump. So there was a massive amount of radiation that came down last night over the whole shoreline.
Now you're talking, okay, let me get this straight. 0.12 microsieverts.
Yeah, that's right.
Microsieverts on the ground.
That's
but 0.20 on the roof from the precipitation.
From that night, yeah. So basically we're talking about a 0.08 difference. Quite a bit, possibly more, okay? Well, then I go down to the PCH, the Pacific Coast Highway. Right below there in the channels where the rain comes off the highway, 0.20 again. Along the plateau toward the sea, 0.16. But at the bottom of the bluff, okay, where the earth meets the beach, I found it was something like 0.28, okay, build up. But in the kelp down there, very old dry kelp that gets blown up, maybe several years old, very absorbent, 0.38, okay. So we're talking about
38
microsieverts. This is like Fukushima levels in that kelp.
That's as high as Fukushima, isn't it?
As high as Fukushima. Yeah. There at the bottom of the, just that one spot. You go down the beach, the numbers go down in the kelp. Basically, in the drier kelp, it's higher because it's exposed, absorbs rainwater, okay? It's been there longer.
Yeah.
Go down toward the beach. Near the water's edge is low because you have relatively still wet kelp. It hasn't absorbed much rainwater yet, okay? Down to about 14, okay? Then the surprise was the kelp, fresh kelp. We're talking about young kelp in the water. That was like 0.28. Okay. So we're talking about this is not affected by rainwater. This is fresh in seawater. There's been, in other words, the bloom in radiation has hit California. Is the kelp, the young kelp that's growing this year, this winter, since last spring, that's been really growing fast, is absorbing a lot of radioactive compounds. So the water is, in fact, very, very radioactive now. So we know very clearly from everything that the water, the bioaccumulation just this year has been massive, okay, compared to the past, that there's massive amounts coming in the fog and in the rainwater as we see at the bottom of the bluff there, okay?
Yeah.
And as we saw in Venice, these massive, unaccounted for lightning strikes. And I've always said that Fukushima radiation has been altering the weather, creating all this freak weather. If these lightning strikes weren't freak weather, I don't know what is. These are bolts out of the blue, in a place where lightning never strikes. And everyone on the beach felt it, apparently. People were just feeling tingling sensations all over the body. About more than a dozen people were hit where they had to be hospitalized. But everyone apparently on the beach, fishermen, everyone that was there, could feel the light. They thought they would see a flash, they could feel the tingling sensation, and then they would see people falling down.
That's an extraordinary report. I read it. That is not normal lightning. It's extremely broad in its impact. Very broad.
Mm-hmm. Not localized. This is over a massive area. It's a big beach. And it went down to Redondo Beach, which is to the southwest. It's quite a distance. Okay, so we're talking about 3 separate places, very far away, and with multiple strikes in each one. This is not normal lightning.
Wow. All right. Well, the North Pacific Current, remember, comes across from Fukushima off Honshu, and it's called the North Pacific Current, and it moves straight across, basically 10 knots an hour. It divides approximately Washington State, north end of Washington State, approximately, let's just say for the sake of discussion, half goes on up to Alaska along the coast and spins round and around in the Gulf of Alaska like a toilet that's been flushed where there's nowhere to go. And it just concentrates and concentrates. The other half comes down south, right down the Pacific coast all the way, and it's washed onto the shore in the waves. It's brought into the shore with the moisture, the marine layer. Any precipitation that forms clouds or fog, that'll bring it in. It migrates through a number of different passes for it to go.